Okay, good day, Riverside voters. Welcome to the Mission Grove Neighborhood Alliance little video cams stuck in our little private studio. We're interviewing the candidates for City Council. We've got Gracie Torres here today from Ward 2, who we're going to talk to and give her a few questions to answer and get to know her a little better. So Gracie, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Why don't you take a minute and just kind of introduce yourself?
Sure. So, hi, my name is Gracie Torres. I am running for Riverside City Council Ward 2. Currently serve as your representative for Western Municipal Water District, where I've been serving for the last 8 years. I have grown up in Riverside since I was 3 years old. My family moved here. I'm raising now my kids here in the city of Riverside, hoping that they raise their kids in the city of Riverside. But this is my city. I went to high school at the first place where my mom taught, and my daughter went to that high school. My son's at that high school. So I care very deeply about this city, and I'm here to serve our community. I believe that I have a proven track record in making decisions and really rooted in community involvement. When MGNA started, I think, for me, it was a amazing venture. I mean, look at where we are now. But it was an amazing venture, and I ensured that the water district was plugged in, that we made sure that we attended every meeting, we got a spot on the agenda, that the residents felt informed, and I want to continue doing those types of things on City Council. I ran on transparency, bringing more jobs, and focused on infrastructure, and that's what I want to focus on while on City Council. And so I think I bring a good track record, and so I'm hoping to earn people's votes based on that.
Great. Well, we gave Gracie, like the other candidates, 2 questions beforehand to answer, and then we'll talk about another subject, kind of have a discussion about that, a third item. So the first one is, city councils often face intense public pressure. Describe a situation where you had to make a decision that was right for the long term, but politically risky in the short term. What did you do, and what happened?
That's a good question. It's a really good question. When I ran for water board, I ran on affordability, essentially. Western water is historically, as you know, more expensive than Riverside water, and a lot of voters know that and note that. And so I had promised that we were going to look into, how to keep things affordable and ensure that voters, or residents, weren't feeling that burden of conservation as well as high prices. And so in the last 8 years, I've had an opportunity twice to vote on rate increases. And both times were in hard economic times. The first one was during COVID. I had residents with up to $10,000 of water debt because they weren't able to pay their bills during the pandemic, and I couldn't bring myself to supporting an increase at that time. It was too difficult, and very politically unpopular for me to do. But residents were very clear; they were struggling, and so I voted against rate increases. In 2024, some things changed, and I think that was because I was very clear about community engagement around rate increases. Western staff took to the community. They wanted to talk to them. They asked me, Director Torres, give us a list of who we need to talk to. I think you were one amongst those people who were already critical of Western, who were critical of our rate increase or our rate structure program. I put them all on the list. People that were going to come with, with tough questions, and the staff, to their credit, reached out and they had those conversations. I wasn't at most of them, but I know that they did exactly that. They really engaged the community. But even with that, we were coming up to a rate increase at a time where, again, our economy was bad. People were feeling the strain of inflation and all those things. And even though staff had done exactly what we hoped they'd do, and they, I think, in my opinion, had a great communications program around those rate increases, I stood with the people that called me. The big difference between the 2020 and 2024 is in 2020 I got angry calls about about rate increases, and in 2024 I can't afford for a rate increase, but I understand, and they understood because we had set out and I had asked that community engagement and information was more clear at the time, and that happened. But still in 2024, I've still voted against the rate increases, even though everything politically, even within the organization, was guiding me towards a yes. The community members were still feeling strains from the economy, and they were still feeling the strains from COVID. So I voted against rate increases, and that's. I think I've mentioned before, any vote that comes before me is really going to be community rooted. I live in a certain part of Ward 2. I don't live in all of Ward 2. So some decisions might not impact my family directly, some might, but it is incumbent upon me to listen to my bosses, and that is the voters. It is not Gracie Torres' vote.
Right.
It's not. So I feel like I said, I have a track record in that, and I'm going to continue that on council.
Great. Second question. Tell us about a time you had to address poor performance or misconduct on a team you led. What actions did you take, and what was the impact on the results and morale?
Man, that one was a tough question. I'm very fortunate to to have had the opportunity to serve on different boards, not just on Westerns, but nonprofit boards, and other organizations, and then privately work with folks on different things, and without disclosing too much.
Well, let me switch that a little bit.
Thank you, because I'm like, how do I talk about personnel
I can tell your
issues?
story, but let me switch that a little bit and give you an example of the type of thing that might happen. A report comes in from staff, and this is a thing that we've questioned a lot with the city that you're going to face, is that the staff doesn't always present all the facts.
Sure.
Right?
Okay.
They give you their view because they want you to vote on it one way, which I'm sure you probably possibly run into this with the water district. So how do you come back and basically challenge that in such a way that's productive?
Okay, that's actually a way better way to, because I was like, how do I talk about personnel issues without talking about personnel issues? So I hope you can cut the rest of that. But yes, when I first got elected to the water board, I came in a unique position in that I have been staff. I work for the county, so I am staff. I write these reports, and of course we're looking, and in our service capacity, we're looking for yes votes. Sometimes no, very rarely no votes, but sometimes no votes. But so I've been in that position as staff, and so I came into that position on the water board, looking at these reports with a different lens, right? One of the, I think, beautiful parts about our democracy is that we have an eclectic group in our electorate, right? They're not all experts. They're not all going to be water experts. They're not all going to be public work experts. It is beautiful, but there's a lot to say about someone that can come in and critically dissect these types of reports. I came in hot at the time. In 2018, excuse me, I came in hot, and I sat on the dais, and I was like dissecting it on the dais, and not surprising now that I have more experience, that was not met very well. And so my approach has changed in having building a better relationship with staff. I think, like I mentioned, with the water rate increases, they learned very quickly. My priority is that you talk to the community, right? They might not like what you have to say, but you need to talk to the community. You need to talk to the people impacted.
And do it before you make the decision.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely.
Instead of coming to them afterwards and going, well, we've already decided, now we're just going to sell you on it.
Right, and that doesn't sit right with me. But those are conversations you don't have on the dais, because again, the decision's already here, right? You have this 6 months before. You have this when you see whether that's a project that's in front of you, whether that's policy and ordinance coming in front of you. Those things need to be vetted absolutely by staff, absolutely by a governance committee, and absolutely by the city council. but also by our community, and I live this, like I said, I live this every day, even as an employee myself. When we have policies, the employees don't like to see them. Hey, you guys, guess what? We have a new tardy policy at work. We don't like that, right? We want to be included in those conversations, and so. It has been, and it will be my approach to these types of reports. And I hope that with that, it's going to bring a city council that it works more collaborative. We won't agree 100%, but if we can have conversations well in advance with those who elected us, those who are implementing the policy or development, whatever the case is, and those who ultimately decide, then I think we'll have a little bit more congruence within the city. That's my goal.
Say, the last thing we'll talk about is Measure Z, the sales tax increase. And when we talk about community engagement, that's one of the questions that comes up. How much community engagement was there really before they decided to vote to increase the tax? And now they're spending $195,000 to go out and inform everyone about this measure. So we'd just like to get your opinion on the Measure Z period. It's a general tax as opposed to a specific tax, so they can claim it's gonna be used to, help monkeys do whatever, but it doesn't matter because it's a general fund tax. So they can really use it for the way they want. We don't know what situations are gonna come up in the future. We don't know what emergencies might come up. We don't know where budgets might be, who knows, right?
Sure.
So anyway, we thought we'd get your opinion on that Measure Z.
Well, I'm in a ward that has high fire risk. So something like Measure Z is incredibly appealing. We're potentially going to get more money to mitigate the fire risk. As I'm knocking on doors and talking to folks, those that bump along those university hills, they're scared. That's the first thing they tell me. Hey, do you see that hill? I'm going to lose everything one day. That's a legitimate concern. What's also a concern is, you're right, in the past, Measure Z hasn't been used for what voters thought it would be used for, or at least that's the critique, right? And so I can't speak to how we got to this point. I wasn't there. What I can speak to is again a track record where I'm going to ensure that, and I've done it before. I've done it at Western. We have a budget. We're asking for increases, but where can we shift things? Where can programs be pushed to the side and or things be prioritized differently so that we don't put a burden constantly on our taxpayers, in my case ratepayers, to flip that bill, right? So me and Measure Z will be or not be elected on June 2nd. But if we are so fortunate to be elected, my goal will, and it's not just voters that have this concern. Our public safety officers do too. They say, hey, we need this money. We're working, we're going to educate the community or work with the community to pass this Measure Z. We want to make sure too that this money is coming to the things that we're also being promised, right? And so, in an effort to make sure that we're congruent with them, that's going to be moving forward proactively, making sure that these funds, although they're not in a specific, it's not a specific sales tax, that they are directed where we are telling voters they're directed. On top of that, we want to make sure that our community is engaged in the budget process. Sorry, this is a little bit of a tangent, but that they're engaged in the budget process early. I've been critical of government in general about this, whether it's countywide, citywide, or even in my water district. Our community members need to know what we're spending our money on, not 3 months before. Not they need to know early. We need to have workshops. They need to understand, and they should be giving input. One thing that I know the county does very well is they host district-specific budget workshops. They have a survey. They have every way that they can to get community engagement in deciding what are we spending our tax dollars on, and not just Measure Z, but in general, the city's budget should be informed by our community At least prioritized in that aspect.
Well, if they'd have done this as a special tax, then they could have done it.
We wouldn't be
audited.
in this
We
place.
wouldn't be in this
Right.
place, so, that's unfortunate. If it gets voted down, they still have the opportunity to do that in November.
Well, and we'll see if that
Yeah.
ends up being the case, but ultimately, like I said, I come from a ward that does need these funds. And does need, or at least needs this attention when it comes to emergency management, specifically wildfire mitigation. But ultimately, regardless of what happens on June 2nd, my priority and my, like I said, I've shown that I'm going to focus on how do we make our budget better so that our firefighters, our police officers are best taken care of.
Right.
Yeah.
When you mentioned the, having the public involved in the budget, the city did budget tours where people could come in. I went to one of those, and they'd give you a sheet and say, this, for this department, we want to know what things you have priorities on. And I said, well, I need to know how much you've already earmarked to spend here.
Sure.
Oh, well, I can't tell you that. I don't know what that is. Well, it says here you're gonna do 11 homeless homes or something. How much are those gonna cost? Well, I don't know. Well, then how am I supposed to prioritize? It was kind of an insult
Yeah,
to
okay.
me, saying that you want me to prioritize what things I think are important, but you're not telling me how much money you're already earmarking to spend on it,
Right.
right? So if you told me you're gonna spend $10,000 on the police department and that was all, then I might have a comment on that. But if you tell me you're gonna spend $1 million on, or $10 million or $20 million on some other stupid thing that I don't agree with, then I'm gonna tell you I don't want that.
Right.
So I think some of those things, they try to do them in the best context, but they're kind of framing them to get the results they want.
Right.
Well, we went out to the public and they all wanted parks and they all wanted this and they all wanted that. Well, yeah, but you didn't tell them how much money you were spending on that.
Right. And that, I mean, and that's valid. As I said, when I first ran in 2018, we talked about transparency. I feel like we've done a great job. I mean, you've interacted with Western significantly, and we, I feel that we've created a culture where we talk to our community as often as possible, present our numbers. You're not the only one, but often I have these one-on-one meetings. I get an email, hey, I have concerns about this, and we sit down one-on-one so people learn. And that needs to not just happen one-on-one, it needs to happen in group settings. I have a commitment to continue doing that as a city council person. There's no reason why I would change, and
Well, I use the example a lot of times of the water district and the county supervisors, that when you go in there and you speak in public comment, if they have a question for you, they ask you a question.
Right.
You know, well, I have a question, and you just claim this or claim that, and there's a dialogue that interacts, and you get a discussion going back and forth a little bit to try to verify what you're trying to convey to them so they understand it, and that where our city council meetings are just public comment, we're not gonna engage anyone, we can't comment on anything, we can't say anything or respond to you, so it's like us and them, you know, in this constant process.
So there's a big wall in
Yeah,
front.
there's like a big wall, and you can throw your dialogue over the wall and hope somebody catches it on the other side. And, you know, people have come up to the podium and go, well, I know you're all gonna be on your cell phones while I'm talking for 3 minutes, which is true, a lot of times they are, and not paying attention. And then all they get is a thank you when they're done, and that's the end of it, so.
The only thing I can speak to is the Brown Act does stop us from engaging, but that shouldn't stop us from taking the concern seriously and finding ways to inform. Like you said,
Right.
if you can't, if the Brown Act says, hey, Gracie, you can't talk back and forth with the constituent at public comment, there's nothing that stops me from walking off the dais, and I've done it. I've walked off the dais, went and got a phone number and said, hey, I will call you
Yeah.
tomorrow to find out more about this. Nothing stops that, again, and I have a track record of doing that. So I'm going to continue to be the same person that I've been, and now in my opinion, in 8 years of governance, now not only do I know and will continue to work the way I do it with residents, now I understand how to do so with staff, and as well as who will be my potential colleagues. And so that's, like I said, for me, it's just an expansion of what I've already done. Nothing's going to change with Gracie Torres.
Okay, folks, there you have it. Gracie Torres running for Ward 2, and the biggest thing you need to do is make sure you get out and vote in June.
Yes.
Thanks.